Welcome to another Albion Online Community Q&A. I'm Community Manager Christoph Hombergs, and as promised, I dragged our Game Director Robin Henkes in front of the camera again to answer a few of our community's questions. Welcome, Robin.
Hi guys, good to be back.
So, without further ado, let's just dive right into the questions. So, what type of players are we trying to appeal to the most?
Well, we're definitely still trying to appeal to the hardcore players, right? The guild players, the people who really thrive in a sandbox environment, that's our key focus. But what we always say is we believe we need to appeal to a wider audience than that as well. We need to appeal to players who are not immediately aligned with the idea of risking everything they've played for a long time to someone just killing them. So we basically think that these two groups of players synergize and rely on each other. That you need the hardcore players to drive the sandbox in a direction, but you need the players who just enjoy certain aspects of Albion to a certain degree and don't have that much time to invest. You need those to fill out the sandbox, to produce the goods for the markets and be targets or be potential future allies for players.
Okay. Are we going to add playable races to the game? If so, which ones?
Yeah, playable races are no longer on our plan. We kicked that idea around for a while ago, but these days we've developed the lore further, the idea behind Albion, and it simply doesn't fit what we're trying to tell with Albion these days. Albion's a story about humans coming to a new, strange, and foreign world. So we want the players to retain that perspective and counter that from a very human perspective. And therefore, fantasy races just don't fit into the narrative anymore.
Sounds a bit like Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Will we ever be able to fight over amazing open world bosses like in other MMOs in Albion Online?
Yes, for sure. Open world bosses are something we've announced and we always want to do. Now, the reality is we actually have a couple of bosses that you could consider open world bosses. If you think about the Demon Prince, if you think about the Earth Mother, the Harvester, all these bosses are available in dungeons that are actually accessible in the open world and where you can be attacked in PvP at any time. So before we actually start introducing more of these, we'd like to get these bosses to a position where players are really excited about them, and we have plans coming up for that by improving the drops, and with a new artifact system, which we'll talk about in another video. I think we're making a huge step towards that.
Okay. Will those rare items we talked about earlier, will they have any special abilities or passive skills?
Yeah, so again, we'll cover this in a more detailed video, but this is exactly what makes these items special, right? The rare items have unique abilities, and that's why you want them.
And will they be drops, or don't we take away from the crafting side of the game if they are drops?
Yeah, so the artifact items will actually not be dropped directly. There's a system where you find artifacts from PvE, and these are required and these are quite rare, right? They're not like gems or runes right now. You'll find these rarely, and they'll be specific to a certain item. So to make a certain item with a certain ability, you'll require a certain artifact, but it'll still involve a crafter along the way to actually make the item in the end.
Okay. Speaking of crafters, are there any ideas to turn gatherers, crafters, farmers into a really important role in Albion instead of just a secondary activity that everybody can upgrade?
Well, I don't really consider crafting or gathering a secondary activity right now. The players really drive the market by gathering these resources. One thing we will not do is to limit the freedom of players to develop in directions. So Destiny Board is supposed to give you that freedom to go in any way you want, and that's something that will stay. What we do have plans for, though, is that crafters will get their own gear, gatherers will get their own gear, and that will allow them to specialize further in their path and make it more impractical to do both at the same time. So people who focus on PvE will have their combat gear, players who gather resources will have their gatherer's gear.
So basically a sort of incentivation to do that more and specialize more in that?
Yes.
Okay. Is a targeting system something that's being tossed around? I assume they mean tap targeting, but... Yeah.
Yes, this is something we hear quite a lot, and I can say we're looking into the controls right now. We're looking into how to offer different control schemes and tap targeting is definitely something that we're trying out as part of that.
Okay. Are you happy with how the auctions work right now?
Well, the auctions, you mean the marketplaces?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with how the marketplaces work right now. We're seeing a lot of activity. You know, they are the central trade hubs, which is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But there are certain things that aren't quite there yet, and I think the most of that has to do with transparency. Right now we have an average cost being displayed, but that cost is not actually being based on the transactions happening. It's more based on the offers on the market, and this is something we'd like to improve. So in the long run, you can see improvements like statistical data, graphs of price developments, volumes being traded, all that sort of information being added to the marketplaces to make trading something more, you know, that you can read more and that becomes more in depth than now even.
Okay, so basically some quality of life improvements and more data for the prospective trader to work with.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Some of the things on our roadmap on the road to release haven't been mentioned in a while. For example, phishing was mentioned. Are these things that players can expect along with a new world or in a separate patch after?
Yeah, phishing is not something you can expect with a new world. A lot of the things on the roadmap, as you know, we're working on, and you will see those like things we've mentioned, the reputation system and so on. We'll get into that further as we go closer to beta stage 2. The rest of the roadmap we still have planned, but whatever you don't see us talking about specifically, you can usually not expect in the next 3 months or so, because we'll typically be very forward about what we're working on in the next 3 months, and everything beyond that is on the roadmap, and we're still considering it, we're still working on it, but it's not coming anytime soon.
Okay, you mentioned the reputation system. That's actually quite a hot topic in the community as well. Any more details on that coming soon?
Yes, absolutely. I don't really want to go into detail because we have a big video coming up on that. Okay. But yeah, I'm very excited for the reputation system.
Okay, fair enough. Emiyashiro asks, when will you start to make balance in important things instead of making frogs in swamp biomes?
That's a loaded question.
I know.
Well, the truth is we're doing balancing all the time, right? We have combat designers working on combat balance all the time. We're looking at the economy all the time. And the people who are building the swamp biome and building the frogs are actually not the same people who would be doing balancing. However, a key point to note on balance is that typically it's much better to point out what points of balance you would like to see improved, or what is a particular balance problem that you're seeing, than to ask generally for balance, because it's not like we unbalance anything on purpose. It's typically that we don't know about a balancing issue, because the issue may only be apparent from your particular perspective. And that particular perspective is possibly something that is quite unique. It's something that you have encountered because of your particular play situation. And we as developers are actually so few people, we don't have the chance to view at Albion from as many angles as you do. So if you ever see a balancing problem, please point it out in the forum in a constructive way, and we'll get onto it.
Okay. We mentioned that there was no current plans to bring back the throwing weapons. Why?
So unfortunately, throwing weapons were kind of dropped when we redesigned the combat system, because when we thought about how we wanted combat to work, we had particular roles in mind. We wanted to have certain combat roles filled out, and the throwing weapons just didn't match any of these roles we had in mind. The other thing was they were too close to existing melee weapons, right? We had throwing axes, throwing knives. These are too close to axes and knives. I think we had hammers as well, again, close to hammers. So there was a lot of confusion, and there were no really good two-handed versions available either. So these were dropped for the time being, but I'm sure at some future point we'll get back to them.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of items in general, will we stick with this 0.1, 0.2 system, or did we put any thought into making this more sort of barrier-free and enable every weapon from the get-go with very high mastery levels.
Yeah. The progression system is actually something we've looked at quite a bit, and you'll see more on this in the rare item / artifact weapons system discussion in a future video as well. But yes, we are getting rid of the core weapons having different base strengths. And we'll be revising the Destiny board in a significant way there as well. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, another hot topic, fast travel. It's been spoken widely about, and it's still missing sort of an answer. How is the future of fast travel going to be?
Yeah. I guess what people are looking to hear is, will we have fast travel? Will we not have fast travel?
I assume so, yeah.
The answer is we will have fast travel, but you will not be able to fast travel with gear through PvP zones. And the reason for this is the following. We think it's a strength of the game if you can quickly shift locations as a player to play with your friends, to look something up, to go to your house, to do these things. But at the same time, we want to protect the trade economy. So by keeping transport free, we are also keeping the trade economy safe.
Mm-hmm. With the implementation of the new world, will we see actually new factions and creatures, and what sort of variety are we looking at?
Yes, definitely. The new world will come with its own set of creatures. For one, we'll have new animals that deliver hides to the players in the different biomes. So in the swamp, you can expect completely different animals from what you see in a forest, for example. And the other thing that we're introducing is completely new, and that's the concept of critters, which we'll probably go in further in a world video. But in short, these are guardian creatures that match the biome that they're living in. So in the forest, you'll see forest spirits. In the mountains, you may see ore elements and rock elements and these sort of things. And that should be pretty exciting.
That sounds great. What other types of content have we planned, for the future, basically?
Well, we've got more content planned that we can actually plan out of making, right? But what you can expect is for us to, once the world is done, to shift towards making more PvE content, as well as obviously exciting new features. So it's been mentioned fishing, all these sort of things we consider content and will be delivering in the long run.
Okay. What do you think about the current status of major open world objectives, just like castles, for example?
Yeah, castles are a thing we've wanted to revisit for a very long time and haven't gotten around to. So open world objectives are play a central role in our plans for the future of Albion. The idea that guilds have a base from which they start, but most of the battles happen in the open world, is something that we want to push forward. And the open world buildings which are coming in will be a key part of that, and reworking castles eventually to fit into this better and improve them is also part of that plan.
Are there any plans to bring in a World of Warcraft-like arena system with ratings, titles, and maybe cosmetics to Albion Online?
So a queued battle arena is not something we would want to see in Albion Online. The reason being that we don't like the idea of having players sit in town queued for battles, just waiting there for something to happen. We want you to go out into the open world and fill the world with life. However, what we're looking into is to widen the GVG system to guilds who are not necessarily in control of territory, but to still have 5v5 fights for those people to sign up to. So what you can expect for us to do in the future is some system where you can sign up for battles, fight over loot or silver, and then have a matched fight like the GVG system.
Is there any plan to implement a system for resetting territory occupation and giving rewards out of that, like a seasonal system?
Yeah, so seasonal systems are obviously very exciting. They've been quite successful recently in other games, and we've had ideas for seasonal systems that we've been kicking around for a while now. So we'll definitely be looking into adding some form of seasonal content to Albion post-launch. However, what you will not likely see is a complete reset of the entire world. What we're looking at is doing some aspect of the game getting a seasonal component.
Okay. Are we still close to the original timeline of beta ending in the start of August? And can we maybe get an updated wipe schedule or launch plan?
So obviously, with the new world coming in, we've had to update the time schedule earlier this year, but we're still on course of what we said there, that the beta would be running at least until August. Actually, you'll see the next phase of beta starting before August, but once that comes, with that the wipe will come, and then we'll have the beta run for about 3 months before we go into launch phase later this year.
Okay, that's my list of questions. Robin, thank you very much for taking the time to answer them.
My pleasure.
Guys, thank you very much for asking all these questions. I hope we'll see you again for the next community Q&A sometime soon.
Yes, please keep the questions coming, and goodbye.